Hello, beautiful souls. It's Kat from Elevate, my channel where we talk about recovering from toxic relationships and regaining self-love and self-esteem. Today's topic is going to be you couldn't have done anything to change the situation. And I think a lot of people beat themselves up and they wonder, what could I have done? Because this relationship ended so badly. There's so much pain. There was so much conflict at the end, and it leaves you feeling flat on the floor in pain and heartbreak. So I'd like to talk about how you couldn't have done anything differently, most likely. It depends on what type of person you were with, but if it was a toxic person, you really couldn't have done anything better or different to change the outcome. And I'm going to talk about why. But before I get into the topic today, if you don't mind, please subscribe below and also check out my free resources on my website and linked below in the comments as well. So I think when we're dating a toxic person or there's an ending of a toxic relationship, we all get very caught up in this idea like maybe it could have ended differently. Maybe I could have done something differently and then this wouldn't have happened. Or if I do this, then maybe this person will apologize. If I do this, maybe this person will feel remorse. How come this person doesn't feel remorse? How come they're not sorry for all they did to me over however many years or months? And, you know, I even know people who will try to sort of guilt people into feeling bad and they just really want to get that apology. And I get that because I've been there myself where I felt like I really wanted an apology. But I think that I understand that someone who's toxic is not necessarily going to ever give that because they just don't have the capability. They just don't have the understanding, right? Like they don't have the objectivity to be able to give you that apology that you're looking for because they don't see things objectively. They see things very subjectively. A toxic person, someone who's a narcissist or another cluster B, they are going to see things very much subjectively. It's a very self-absorbed type of world. So it's about them. It's about what benefits them. It's about what they get out of a situation. So they're running on this program of what am I getting? What's coming to me? And that's it. It's not about what you're getting. It's not about appreciating that you're giving. It's just like, what can I take from the situation? Even if it's not a conscious kind of thing, that's how they roll. So you have to understand that this person's not coming at this relationship in the same way. They're coming at it like all about them. It's not a reciprocal thing, right? So it's not like, oh, I'm going to be good to this person's going to be good to me, and we're going to give and take. It's really about them having a need for whatever. It could be many different things. It could be a need for them to look good, so they want to be with you because they think they look good in other people's eyes if they're with you. It could be an ego thing, so they think that, you boost their ego by being with them. And that makes them feel good about themselves because deep down inside, these people have very, very fragile egos, right? They have a very low self-esteem actually inside, which makes them act this way so they can feel better about themselves, so they could try to fill the void inside themselves that will never be filled by anything external. But they don't get that. They don't even know what they're really doing. They're doing all this on a subconscious level. So you have a person who doesn't have the capability to have the introspection, the self-awareness to look at what they did and say, oh, I hurt this person when I did these things, and I'm so sorry that I did that because that was wrong. It's wrong to hurt other people. They don't have that. They only think of themselves and how it affected them. Did it make them happy? Did it make them sad? Did it make them feel satisfied? Did it make them feel like they have the power? Did it make them feel like they were in control? These are the only things they think about. Did it make them feel like confident, or did it make them feel fulfilled? They only care about how it made them feel. So what you feel or whatever happened with you, your feelings, they don't matter to these people. These people don't have that type of self-awareness or the ability to have compassion and empathy for other people and recognize my actions caused a detriment to another person. They just don't have that peace. And it's a shame. It's scary for them and sad for those people. But there's nothing you can do about that. So I know a lot of times as codependents, people will try to feel like they could have done something better or different to change the outcome. So oftentimes when you're dating someone who's toxic, in the love bombing phase, everything's great, right? Like they're loving you, you're loving them, and it seems like things should be able to continue that way. Unfortunately, because of the devaluation phase and the way that that goes, as time goes on, they teach you to doubt yourself, because as you get devalued, some of those things that they're devaluing you for are not even real issues. It's just things that they now are going to criticize because they have to, in their mind, make you a bad person, because most likely you've been calling them out on disrespecting you, and they hate that. That's like kryptonite to them, right? Toxic people don't want to be called out and be accountable and face shame. That's kryptonite to toxic people and narcissists. It is like their number one thing that they want to avoid, right? So shame is never going to be faced by these people. However, if they're not going to take on the shame, they need somebody to blame, right? So that's you. It winds up being you that takes the blame, because they can't ever actually blame themselves or take responsibility for their part in the issues. They need to blame someone else. And what's happening is, when they're devaluing you too, is they've always been trying to fill this void inside them. They've always been trying to feel like they're enough. And because they always feel like they're not enough, they will latch on to people who they then think, that person's going to make me feel like I'm enough. This is going to change my life and make me feel like I'm enough. But then it doesn't. And then that's why they devalue you, because they think maybe the next person will do that for them. So they just think, well, this wasn't the right person. And they start to find flaws in you because you're human. A lot of the times the flaws they find are because you're human. And then they will devalue you and discard you ultimately for someone else that they then think, oh, that person's going to fix me and make me feel better. But it always happens in the same cycle where it never occurs. And oftentimes the next person they go to is just easier to manipulate, easier to mold and control. Toxic people don't do well with very strong-headed partners who have boundaries. It's never going to work. That's like this, like boundaries and a toxic person. It's like this. So the toxic person's going to leave because they want someone who they can control. They want someone who does not have boundaries, because that's easier. So you might get discarded very quickly when you have boundaries. And it's upsetting because you wonder, like, wait, I thought this person loved me, or I loved them, or we were friends, and I thought that we were really close. But because you have boundaries, they may just completely chuck you out of their life. And I've had that happen to me with a friend. So it's like, which I've talked about on this channel before, the situation with the friend. So you never know what's going to happen, but sometimes the minute you start putting out boundaries and holding boundaries for respect and being treated properly, some people will just literally kick you out of their life because they can't handle people that have boundaries and people that have self-respect. They want to be able to use you for what they want to use you for. They don't want to hear any lip from you about it. And if you don't play with their program, you're out. And that hurts because you're like, wait, like, what did I do wrong? I didn't do anything except stand up for myself. I told the person I don't want to be treated this way or whatever it is. Unfortunately, toxic people look at boundaries like kryptonite, so they will run. They realize you can't be used. You won't allow someone to disrespect you and use you without you saying something and holding them accountable. And they don't want to be accountable. They cannot face shame. They cannot face what they've done. They don't even see it because they don't have this objectivity. They only see like this much. That's it. That's all they see. It's just their little world of them. And unfortunately, you might be seeing like this whole big thing and the whole scenario, but they don't have that capability. So you're like talking a different language to them. They don't really even understand. Like when you're saying, I want you to be accountable. I want you to own your peace. They don't get that because they don't think they have a peace. They need to blame you because there has to be someone to blame. If they can't face the shame, they have to blame you because someone has to be to blame. And it's certainly not going to be them, right? Because they can't see that. They don't have the self-awareness. They have a very self-absorbed type of thinking. You could say they're in denial. You could say they live in a fantasy world. I would say all of those things are true. So you're dealing with someone who distorts reality to their own agenda and then blames you as basically for everything because they cannot own their peace. So the topic of this video is you couldn't have changed the outcome of the situation. And the reason why I wanted to talk about that is no matter how good you were, no matter what you did or didn't do, things would have been the same. I think these toxic people run on patterns. They have the same patterns over and over again. And I think that no matter who you are, that pattern plays out. It plays out faster or slower depending on your boundaries and your tolerance for disrespect and abuse. So if you are someone who identifies being manipulated very quickly, then you will likely be out pretty quick, right? Because you identify it and maybe you say something about it and then you get discarded. If you're someone who tries hard to please, if you're a people pleaser and you're really trying to keep that person happy, you may last longer. You may get to be with them longer, but unfortunately, it's all on their terms. And it's sort of like selling your soul because, it feels like since everything's on their terms, you're not getting what you need. You're effectively taking your needs and you're pushing them aside so that your needs don't get met and you're only catering to this person's needs. And these are different ways that codependent people or partners of toxic people will respond to the toxic person. So oftentimes we will push our needs to the side and we will try to work on the relationship, looking up relationship articles and trying to talk to our partner and trying to see what we can do to make it work. And, maybe it's attachment styles and let's try this and let's try that. And maybe we could communicate better. Maybe it's communication. It's not any of those things when you're with a toxic narcissist or someone with borderline personality disorder or someone who's got mental illness and they're not medicated. It's not any of those things because no matter how great you can communicate, no matter how wonderful you are at, let's say, regulating your attachment style so that you could be more secure, no matter how great you are, you will not succeed at changing the outcome of what a relationship is with a toxic person because it's always going to end up the same way. They will do this to you. They did it to the last person and they're going to do it to the next person. And that's just how they are. So you have to understand that no matter what you tried, no matter what you did, you gave your best effort. I know you did. But it was never going to be enough because no matter whether you would be more permissive with them and sort of not cause conflict and try your best to just sort of go with the flow, or if you caused conflict and kept standing up for yourself, either way, it was never going to wind up good right? It was never going to wind up that you could have had a successful and healthy relationship with this person. You cannot have a successful and healthy relationship with this person. Unfortunately, this person's not capable of that. And oftentimes people will beat themselves up and say, well, I did this, but maybe I should have done that. Maybe I shouldn't have said this. It was not one thing you said. It was not one thing you did. Maybe you made mistakes. We all make mistakes. We all, reactive abuse is real. I think when you get abused and manipulated and someone's really at you for a long time, you can reactively abuse them back with verbally and so forth. So I think, yes, you probably made some mistakes, but that would not be why things fell apart. They were going to fall apart. It was like inevitable. And that's so hard to accept because we don't want to believe that. We want to believe that we could have had control. We could have had some sort of control and changed things. Unfortunately, in a scenario like this, I believe that we don't have control. I believe that the patterns of this toxic person will play out. The patterns of the codependent partner will also play out. And this dynamic will play out and it will end in a disaster, no matter what you did or didn't do. Because a toxic person is not able to be in a healthy relationship. It's not in their nature. They don't have the skills. You have to have skills to be in a healthy relationship. You have to have emotional maturity. You have to have a lot of self-awareness. You have to have intelligence, emotional intelligence. You have to be equipped with the idea that you're working together, not just working for yourself. So that just that one piece, it makes the toxic people disqualified. They already think that they're only working for their own best interest. Despite what they might tell you, that's their deep down feeling. So already that's like a big principle that in a relationship, you're working for the better of two people. You're trying to better two people in a relationship together, caring about both of their feelings and making things better for both of them. But when you're with a toxic person, they only care about one person and it's not you, it's them. So right there, it's like sort of like game over. You can't get anywhere with these people because of that. So I hope this helped you today, understanding that you couldn't have done one thing or the other. These people are going to live out these patterns over and over again with other people in different ways. It's not always the same way. They're often going to go to be with people after you who are easier to control and manipulate. To them, that's love. So to them, if they can control and manipulate someone else and that person keeps giving and giving to them and having no boundaries, to them, that's love. Eventually, they will usually lose respect for that person too. And it'll just be like a same cycle again. But to them, if they can control someone, that's how they see love. And because you were standing up for yourself, you had respect for yourself, and you were, let's say, holding them accountable for the things they did wrong, that's not love for them. In fact, I think you'll notice one of the biggest dead giveaways for a toxic person is when you call them out and you try to hold them accountable and they turn it around and get angry at you and make something your fault. Like it's like you shouldn't have said that way, or you shouldn't have said that at that time because that's why I was upset. Like they're going to turn it all around on you like somehow it's your fault. But it's not your fault. Like you played a part, you made mistakes, but you're self-aware enough probably if you're on my channel to understand what you did wrong, and you probably apologized for it already because you recognize that it wasn't right. So these people will not apologize. These people will continue in life thinking they were right, thinking thinking that you deserved what you got. That's another big thing that these toxic people, like that mentality of like, you needed to be punished. You needed to get what you were going to get. That's a big toxic mentality as well. So they walk away without having any guilt or remorse because they don't think they did anything wrong. So that's something that we can't really understand. People that are remorseful, people that do have a conscience who and they examine themselves, it's very foreign and hard for us to understand this concept. But this is how these people are. It's not going to change. You couldn't have done anything better. Stop blaming yourself and beating yourself up if you've been feeling like I shouldn't have texted or I shouldn't have called or, why did I say this and that's why this happened. It's not you. It's not you didn't cause some sort of healthy person to become unhealthy. It's not possible by doing one mistake. Like if you made a mistake, forgive yourself. Okay? And we all make mistakes. You have to forgive yourself. There's nothing you can do now. If that person was abusing you, if that person was disrespecting you, if that person was not consistent, if they were saying they were going to call you and they didn't, if they were like Jekyll and Hyde, those people, it's those people are always going to be that way. You can't change those people. So you can't expect them to change. You can't have an expectation where they're going to change and they're going to come and apologize and you're going to walk happily into the sunset. It's unfortunately not going to happen. So I hope this video helped you today to understand that you couldn't have done anything better and you'll forgive yourself for whatever mistakes you did make, but still understanding that this was the way it was going to be and it's going to be like this for them with the next person and the next person and the next person after that.